Hello everybody, as you can see, you're staring at my desktop on my laptop. I'm using my laptop today because it actually has a microphone and my desktop doesn't. Avast can go away right now. So today I'm going to be showing you how to install Linux Mint from the download to the finished install basically on a PC. I've seen many other Linux Mint installs on YouTube, and some of them are pretty good, but some of them don't really go into the deepest of detail on how to do it. Alright, so let's go. First thing you want to do is open your internet browser. I prefer Firefox. One other thing you may notice is that the text on everything on this screen is really big. I don't normally have it like this, but it's because of YouTube's compression and everything, and maybe you're watching it at a lower resolution. This should make it easier for you guys to see it. Anyway, so you want to go to Linux Mint's home page, which is, by the way, my favorite distribution of Linux. Just Google Linux Mint, and then it should be the first link. Like it's right here, Linux Mint main page. You can see their features. Then you can go to their downloads. If you have a newer computer, you can get Linux Mint 16, but I found out I have an old Dell Latitude D600. It doesn't like Linux Mint 16, so I had to get an older version. For the older version, you go to downloads, and then you go to all versions. And I would go for Linux Mint 13, as it's the long-term support, and I think that's the version that I'm running on that old Dell right now. I'm not 100% sure, I haven't started it up in a while. But I'm going to show you how to do, they're all the same, but I'm going to show you how to do 16. So you choose what you want here. You got Cinnamon, which is like, you gotta have a decent computer for Cinnamon. It's the most graphically intensive version of it. All the way down to X-Face here, which is the most the least demanding system. I would recommend X-Face if you're running it on like a netbook or something like that. Laptop probably mate to Cinnamon, and if you're running a desktop, you should be just fine running Cinnamon. Another thing is, if you got an older computer, you're going to probably want 32-bit, but most computers now support 64-bit. There's no difference to either one. So I'm going to show you how to do Cinnamon 64-bit. Actually, no, I have to do 32-bit because this is going on an old IBM computer. So we're going to do 32-bit. And then you can download it via like BitTorrent or uTorrent or whatever. I prefer the direct download. You got all these countries here. You select the country that's nearest to you. I live in Canada, so I would download it from this one. Save file. And then it downloads. Now, I actually have this downloaded. Excuse me. I just gotta figure out where it is. Alright, so here's my Linux Mint install. Let's just say it downloaded. Okay, so another program you're gonna want is an ISO burning software, because your computer, you cannot open the ISO file no matter what you do. You can't extract it or anything because it's meant to be burned onto a disk. I don't know how the Windows disk burn software works or not. I've never used it. I just use the image burn. So to get to there, I'm just gonna cancel this download because I already have it downloaded. Just type in img burn for image burn, and again it should be the first link here. Then you want to go up here under the image burn logo next to news. It says download. And these are just your download sites. You got your mirrors, different mirrors. I don't think it really makes a difference. It's not that big of a file, so I'm just going to use the top one. And then you click here to download. Nice big green download button. You gotta be careful when you're installing this because there's some things you want to uncheck, or you're gonna get a couple toolbars or just junk software that you don't really need. Basically just advertising that they try and put in. So that's done. Now we're gonna install it. Yes. Next. For this first page you can accept and hit next. This page is okay. So this is just next. Now here, where it comes up with Get Search Perfect or Protect for Internet Explorer, Firefox, go to Custom. You don't need that, and then just uncheck the checkbox. If you do install, I've had it on my computer. It basically just protects your search engine from being changed from other programs. But I've since uninstalled it because I'm always careful when installing software to always go to the custom option. They always hide. Some installers will actually hide it and make it really hard for you to find it because they want you to install all their junk software. But if you look carefully, you'll find it. This installer is pretty upfront about it. Just go to custom and then uncheck the install whatever offer they're offering at the time. And then here's another offer. Get your PC running at peak performance. Yeah, this doesn't actually work, so you can uncheck this too. And then it should install it without installing any yeah, you can check for new updates every now and then. This will install it without installing any of the junk software that is bundled with it, with the installer. And then when it's installation complete, you can hit close, and now that's installed. And so now here's the icon for it. You just want it. Now you want to get your DVD, blank DVD. Put it in your disk drive. Now when this autoplay comes up, if it even does, just close out of it. You don't need it. And then open up your image burning software. Or in my case, I'm going to use ImageBurn, what I downloaded and just showed you how to install. Go to Write Image File to Disk. And now you want to, where it says Source here, please select the file. Click on this little file folder with a magnifying glass on it. It says Browse for File if you have your mouse over it. And now it'll bring you, now you go to either it'll probably be saved in your downloads, but in my case it's saved in my documents. You just want to look for the ISO. It should be narrowed down to just showing the ISOs, but if it's not, just click on it. And now this should already be set up to your DVD burner. This is all okay. You may need to move this window out of the way because down here is where you click to burn your disk. Just leave that on automatic. Just leave, after you've selected your source file, this should all be set up to your DVD burner and everything, so just leave everything else as is. And then you can click write, and now it will begin to burn the Linux Mint to your DVD. Now with this program, if the verify option is selected, it will cycle your disk tray, meaning it will open it and then close it again really quick, and then it will read the disk and make sure everything's okay. Eject tray, I don't even bother with, but eject tray just basically opens the tray after it's done burning, but you'll know when it's done burning because it'll play some music chime or whatever, and it'll come up with a little dialog box saying that it was successful at burning your image to your DVD. I'll also show you the second way you can do this, which is installing it via a USB drive, which is it's much faster than a CD, installing and booting. But you gotta have a USB handy that's at least 4 gigabytes, I think. I don't know if it has to be empty or not, but I would back up all your data on it before you write the ISO to the USB. Alright, so now it's going to verify the disk as soon as it's done writing. So if you're using a laptop, you have to manually push the disk. It'll tell you in its dialog box, all attempts to automatically close the disk drive have failed. This is to be expected on laptop style slimline drives. Please close it manually and then click OK to continue. So now it's going to verify that the image that it burned is actually complete and it's not corrupt in any way from the. It's basically comparing it to the original image. Okay, so now it's going to play its little chime saying that it completed successfully. Okay, now that was the disk method of how to install or how to burn Linux Mint to a disk. Now what I'm going to show you is how to install Linux Mint via using a USB drive, which is much quicker than burning it to a disk. So what you're going to need is the software. Alright, so it's apparently pendrivelinux.com. I will put the link for this in the description. Basically what you gotta do is download this file, and download is right here. It's another big download button. It's funny because most of the time you want to avoid these big download buttons, but in this video, no, you gotta use them. Well. The install is pretty straightforward. It's just click agree and then it just works. So I gotta get my USB drive. Alright, I found it. So it's pretty straightforward. You plug your USB drive in, and then from this drop down menu you have different versions of Linux. And for this video's sake, we're going to use Linux Mint, which is right here. It's only one version of Linux Mint. Now you gotta browse for the ISO file. In my case, it's in my documents, and it's right here. I don't know why this is all messed up. Just minimize it for a minute. Anyway, this is supposed to say show all drive used with caution. It could be just messed up because of the resolution scaling. I have to do that in my case because my drive is a 64 gigabyte drive. Now this is up to you. You can use leave it to about 4 gigabytes for changes. Now I'm not going to format my drive because I don't want to delete all the other data that's on it. But I highly recommend that you back up your data. You don't have to get it all off your USB drive, but back it up onto your computer before you proceed. Now I'm going to do it anyway because I've done this multiple times, and I'm pretty sure that it's not going to delete everything off my USB drive. But I highly recommend that you back it up. Just back it up anyway. It may take a little extra time, but it's worth it, especially if you got some important documents on your USB drive. Anyway, after you've backed up your USB drive, you can hit create down here, and then it will warn you about and it's going to tell you what it's going to do. Just click yes. Now this will take some time. This progress bar will probably sit. I just got to extract it first. It'll probably sit, I think, around this section here for quite some time while it's installing it onto your USB drive. Well, that's a first. Probably because I'm making a video, but today it decided to finish extracting and then just zoom all the way over to the finish. Normally it freezes up around this area right here and it'll sit there for a good 15 minutes or so, and then it will continue. Anyway, now that it's on the USB drive, you can hit close, and it will rename your USB drive to UUI, which is not a big deal. But if we continue without scanning, yeah, you can see that all my other files are still on here, as well as with the as well as Linux. Okay, well that's about it for the screen capture part of this video. Now we're going to switch over to my video camera, and we're going to install Linux Mint onto my IBM desktop. So I'll be right back. So my plans were to originally use this computer down here, this IBM ThinkCentre, but it didn't work. So what we're going to do is use this HP Media Center Edition, which has been in multiple of my other videos. And it should work for us. This is why I recommend you getting the Linux Mint 13 if you have an older computer, like 2004 vintage, like that one, because it doesn't really like those older computers. I don't know if it's the Intel graphics chipset or whatnot, but it didn't want to work. So we're going to use this HP instead. So you gotta put the disk in the drive. We're going to do the disk method. I have taken the 80 gig hard drive out of the IBM ThinkCentre and put it into here because I have another hard drive in this thing that I don't really want to mess up. And as soon as our monitor decides to come to life, which could not happen because of a loose VGA cable, or one that has decided to fall off. Yeah, you know, it would help if it was plugged in. Okay, shut off. Okay, this is how to change your boot device. So on this HP, it's F10 to enter the BIOS, or at least it used to be. It's F1. It's F1 for setup. Okay, so once you're in the HP BIOS, on the top here you want to go over to boot, and then boot device priority. Make sure your CD-ROM is above, where are we here? Yeah, make sure your CD-ROM is above your hard drive. That way it will boot from it. CD-ROM group priority, you can leave that as is. It should be defaulting to above your hard drive. Then I would save changes first and then exit the BIOS, but apparently I just decided to exit the BIOS. Okay, so now the disk is in the drive. The computer's starting up. This computer is a little bit newer. It's got a Pentium D processor. Room heater, that's what it used to be. We're not going to do the automatic boot. I'm going to show you this menu. You got Start Linux Mint, which is what the automatic boot does. Automatic just automatically boots it up to your desktop. Start in compatibility mode, which is for, I guess, older systems. I could have tried that on the IBM, but I'm not even gonna bother. Integrity check, make sure your computer is functioning properly. Memory test, make sure your memory is functioning properly. Or if you suspect you have a problem with your computer, they are great diagnostic tools. And boot from your hard drive, which or boot from local disk, which means just boot from your computer regularly without installing Linux Mint. So we're gonna start it because you got booted up before you can install it. See that white screen that we just had? That's where the other IBM sat and just sat there and just thought about it. Now, if it doesn't automatically boot from the CD, you'll have to enter the BIOS, which is something I didn't show you. I can edit it in, I guess. I'll edit it in after I do the install. And you just go to boot devices or startup selection or whatever it is. Every computer seems to be different. It's normally boot and then boot order, and you want to make sure your CD drive is above your hard drive, and make sure that your CD drive is not excluded from the actual boot list. And you may notice the noise that you're hearing in the background of this video. It is from my network switch. It's an HP network switch. It's a 10100 switch, 24 port. Got it for free. My school was gonna sort of throw it out. I asked them if I could have it, and said, "Go ahead." So I grabbed it. Might as well put it to use. And here's your desktop. This is what you are presented with once it boots up. Down in the bottom corner here, you should be familiar with, unless you're a Windows 8 user, is a menu. Something that Linux Mint has not gotten rid of yet. And your menu looks something like this, if it decides to load. Of course, this is running off the CD still, so it's pretty slow. There's all your quick links, I guess you could call them. I don't know the official name for them, but there's your Firefox web browser, your software manager, system settings, which is basically a control panel, your terminal, which is command prompt, lock your screen, log out, and then quit, which is shut down basically, which you couldn't see. Alright, so here's your menu. You got your Firefox here, your software manager, system settings, some social media thing, your terminal, which is basically command prompt if you're familiar with Windows, your file browser, and then you got lock screen, log out, and then quit, which is basically shut down. It tells you what everything is over in this corner down here. As you can see, quit, shut down your computer. It's got a nice little description underneath everything. Anyway, to install Linux Mint, you can see it's got a picture of a CD right here. It says install Linux Mint. It's really quite straightforward from this point on. And the installer basically runs inside the operating system. Now, if you're using the CD method instead of the USB method, it's going to take a few seconds to load up the setup as it has to read it off the disk. As you can see, it's thinking about it, and here it comes. So this is the beginning of the installer. You got your language selection. I'm going to leave mine on English. Of course, it says welcome. Pretty basic on this page. You basically just click continue, and it has to do a little bit more thinking. And preparing to install Linux Mint. For best results, please ensure that your computer is this computer has at least 7.4 gigabytes of disk space and is connected to the internet. If you're running on a laptop, it will ask you to plug it into the AC adapter. And if anything, like say you don't have enough, let's say you don't have an internet connection. If I pull it out, it should automatically detect that it does not have one anymore. And as you can see, it will alert you with a red X. Now you can install it without an internet connection. It's not a big deal. But if you have the internet connected in, it will install other bits of software to make your computer a little bit more usable. Okay, so then you hit continue. Does a bit more thinking. And if you do not have an operating system on your hard drive, you can erase disk and install Linux Mint, meaning that this will erase everything on that hard drive. As you can see, warning, this will delete any files on the disk. And as you can see, this hard drive that I have in here, which is the 80 gigabyte Seagate, I was using in my Bell PVR until I upgraded that to a 1.5 terabyte. Anyway, it's got options. If you do have like Windows 7 or Windows XP installed on your computer, which you shouldn't be using Windows XP anymore as it's out of support, it will have the option to install it alongside that operating system, so you can like basically dual boot. You can use Linux Mint or you can use Windows. I've done that a couple times, or you can choose something else which is a bit more advanced, and I won't go into it at this time. Basically, if you choose the something else option, you can resize your partitions manually, but we don't have to worry about that because this is we're going to use the entire disk for this Linux Mint install. After you've selected your option, you can click install now. Now it asks you where you live. Now I'm in Canada, obviously. Alright, well it looks like that's as close as we can get to the screen anyway. So you just choose your approximate location, or you can type it in down here. This is basically just for your time zone. Yeah, we'll select Toronto, I guess. It's not exactly where I live. It's close enough though, because I am in the Eastern time zone. I don't think they have all of the smaller cities and towns, but you can type those in and find out. Now it's going to ask you for your keyboard layout. I'm just going to leave mine default US keyboard layout. Now it's going to ask you who you are. You're going to type in your name. I'm just going to leave all this for the rest of the time being. And then you have to have a password on Linux. It will not let you continue unless you have a password. It's a safety thing, I guess. Now you can have a one-letter password. It's not a big deal. It'll just say short password. You can continue with it, but you cannot continue. I can click on continue. if I don't have a password typed in, it won't let me do anything. So just put in a password. And if they don't match, it'll say it does not match, as you saw there for a second. And then here it says log in automatically or require my password to log in. I always just say to log in automatically. You can encrypt your home folder, but I don't think that's really necessary. And then you can hit continue. And that's basically it for the installer. Now it's just going to copy over the files, or it's going to install it from the CD. It'll give you a little slideshow type thing. Now because my camera is starting to run out of memory space, I'm going to pause the video here and I'll come back when it's nearing completion. Okay, well, I wasn't paying attention. I was doing some other stuff on one of my other computers. Anyway, the installer is finished, as you can see, and this is what it greets you with once the installer has finished. Installation. Okay, so apparently I stopped the recording last time. I figured this out in editing, that I was missing a clip. So after you restart your computer from that installer, this is the desktop that you will be greeted with. And down in the bottom, what is this, the bottom left hand corner, you got your menu. It's basically, it's similar to the start menu. You got your power button, and it says what it is over here. Quit shuts down the computer. This is your logout button and your locked screen. One thing I'm going to show you, if you have a hard time seeing these screens, what you need to do is you just go to all applications, which is up here, and then look for this. It's like it looks like a monitor with two white arrows in it. It's called displays. And that'll bring up this menu. Now this is a Dell monitor, but it's a 20-inch, not a 17. And you can see it's at its native resolution, 1080 by 1280 by 1024. You can drop this all the way down to 800 by 600, and then hit apply over here. And then that'll make everything nice and big for you, like Windows does. And then you hit keep this configuration. And if you don't do anything, it'll revert back to its other mode. I'm going to put it back to its standard resolution. Another thing you can do instead of that is go to menu and go to preferences, and look for universal access. Now here's where you can turn large text on or off, right there. I have it set to on at the moment, because this is part of the video from yesterday that I had thought that I had recorded, but I actually didn't. This is what it looks like without large text, and this is what it looks like with large text on. But that doesn't really make that big of a difference, so you may just be stuck with lowering your resolution like I showed you before. I hope you enjoyed this really long video. It was long, it was different. Let me know what you think of it. And if you would like me to do, say, more tutorials on Linux Mint, or if I shouldn't do tutorials at all anymore. The screen capture is new for me. You may notice a little color depth and everything. I got to go through the settings on the screen capture software and change that to 32-bit. And other than that, I think the video was pretty good. So yeah, comment if you want to, like the video, subscribe to my channel, I guess, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.